Hi, I'm Jenny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here sharing the speaker portion of our Connections Over Coffee gathering of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. Sandy Travis Bildahl is speaking on What's Next? Bravery to the Rescue. Sandy is a certified emotional intelligence and business coach, author of the bestseller Bravery Becomes You, On the Road to Fearless and Free, and an inspirational speaker. She believes that when bravery becomes you, emotional struggles that are not aligned with your true self are replaced with the joy of feeling alive, satisfied, and content. Awakening your own inner compass makes direction to the future clear and reveals a life you love. The power of stories to create life-transforming change, as well as deep connections with others, has been Sandy's passion throughout her 20-year entrepreneurial career because she loves the wonder of adventure. She loves being scared and she loves living brave. And her website is in the text of this. So Sandy, thank you for being here and you're on.
Well, it is really great to be here. And I love the subject of what's next. And I often talk about bravery and what would you do if you were brave. And so I've moved into another question of what's next, because I think about what's next and I think about it a lot. And to me, it's very exciting, but it also causes a lot of stress at the same time. And I realize that there's an interesting paradox about what's next, because what's next is really the future. And that the future is this field of potential and promise. And at the same time, it's a field of peril and problems. And how you move forward into this completely unknown world, it means taking a risk. And the future is, because it's unknown, there is no guarantee of any outcome. So there's no way for you to know that what you're going to do next is even going to work. And so I think it provides a very interesting paradox in that I think we all feel the desire to grow and learn and be more. And yet at the same time, we have a natural inclination, kind of a safety guard of fear to say, oh, that's kind of uncomfortable. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should just stay right where we are. And so that often can lead to just feeling stuck or unsure or overwhelmed, when what you really want to do is answer that call that's exciting and, everything you want. And so what I have also realized is in that paradox, there's an answer to the paradox. And that answer is bravery, because when you add bravery into that paradox, that you actually have a chance of influencing the outcome, so that the outcome, even though you think you can't predict it, when you're brave, you can predict that your future will be satisfying, meaningful, and you will feel good. And I think that everyone here today has a feeling that they want the future to be good. That's why we're here. We all want to learn from each other and be inspired by each other. And we all have ideas about what we want next. And so bravery to me is the key to making that happen. And so in preparing for today, I was thinking about how I've looked at what's next from my own life. And I went back to thinking kind of at the beginning of my career. And I was working at Captain Kangaroo Television in New York City. And I walked in that door as an assistant on the television show. I ended up on his radio show, Bob Keeshan's radio show. And I really wasn't doing the work that was the radio show because I was administrative. But I knew from the start that I wanted to be part of this radio show. The radio show was interviews with people, and I loved their stories. And I just knew I wanted it. I felt passionate about it. And so one day when I was on a bus, I met a woman who was really interesting. And I asked her if she would like to be on the show, and which was not my job to offer something like that. And I went back the next day and I said, oh, well, I just invited this person to be on the show. Is that okay? And they said, yes. And I said, well, would it be possible that I do the interview for the show? And they said, yes. So all of a sudden I found myself in the CBS studios with, Dan Rather and Walter Cronkite and all these different people interviewing this woman. And I'd never done this before. I really didn't know what it would be. I was taking a risk. And so after the interview, the person turned to me and she said, this is the first time I've done an interview. This was so great. You made me feel so comfortable. And I said, well, I just have to tell you, I have never done an interview before. And this was so great. And this was so comfortable for me too. And so it just gave me the permission and the belief that maybe this was okay. I could keep moving forward. And so in the rest of my time at the radio show, I interviewed hundreds of people. I faced getting out of my comfort zone all the time. It always felt good. And of course, I had a dream of outcome. And but what happened is that I did not become an anchor at the CBS News evening hour, and I did not move forward into a television career, which is what I was really hoping for. And part of that was because I was in radio, and at the time, radio didn't really translate into that. And so I thought, how do I not feel disappointed that I didn't end up where I was going? But what I realized is that the action of being brave over and over and over again woke up a passion that I had, and that the passion of story and the passion of interviewing people and loving that became the direction of my entire life. Everything that I've done has been about story. So I didn't get the outcome that I thought I wanted, but I got that right outcome for me. I got an outcome that was still propelling my future forward, and it was actually a meaningful outcome because it made me feel good. And that kind of experience, has continued through my whole life. So that woke up my passion. Then another circumstance where I was in a job where I loved the job and I had big dreams for what I thought the job could be, but it ended up being a really unhealthy environment. And so I decided I was going to quit my job. And it was a time when the economy wasn't particularly good. And I thought, this just isn't right for me. It's time for me to go. And this isn't the job that I thought it was going to be. And so my first inclination was to be annoyed that this wasn't the job that I thought I was getting. And I had all sorts of things I was going to, say about that and the justice of it and all these things. And instead, I decided that that isn't what I was going to do. I chose a different direction of leaving graciously and with support and with kindness. And I remember walking out the door on my last day at that job and thinking, wow, I should have a job quitting jobs. I really like that. And that wasn't at all the outcome that I could have possibly wanted. But now I had experienced my own resilience. I had experienced my own ability to speak up for myself and stand up for myself. And what a great outcome that would be. It just, again, was not the outcome that I had envisioned. And so, this has gone on through my whole life. And I think this is what, happens to all of us. And so fast forward to a few years ago when I was in a place where I really wanted to change, and I wanted to be brave, and I wanted to take a risk. And of course, that led to the story that's behind my book, Bravery Becomes You, On the Road to Fearless and Free, because my son called and asked me to go on a 6-week camping road trip out west and sleep in the middle of nowhere in his 3-man tent. And I have never camped in my life. And this was for 6 weeks. So of course I said no. And then I said yes. And on that journey, I had the opportunity to experience the different parts of me that were affecting how I was going to move forward in the future. It was an amazing experience to listen to the conversation in my head versus the experience that I was having. So, things like, let's drive down a road and pick a spot and pitch a tent. Completely uncomfortable for me. Let's drive 11 hours to hear a band. Way too long for me to sit in a car. Thing after thing and day after day of having to step out of my comfort zone and be brave about something, while at the same time, there was a conversation going on in my head that was relentlessly telling me, no, we're not doing this. No, this isn't good. What are you thinking? Why are you doing this? Maybe we ought to go home. And the more I was brave, the more I realized it felt so fantastic to be brave, just like it felt so great to be doing those interviews. So it felt so great to walk out that door with grace and dignity. And And so I really became clear that that voice that was never going to go away was not going to be the driver to my future. I wanted to be the driver of my future. I wanted to have my life be just like this adventure of being in this car and facing my fears and experiencing how wonderful it was to push past comfort and be brave. And it really changed my life to have that 6-week opportunity every day to see that over and over and over again, and to have the opportunity to build bravery over and over again. And then I came home. And so when I came home, I faced, how do I make life at home an adventure? How do I deal with my fears? How do I deal with wanting to be brave? What do I want to do next? And how do I keep this exciting feeling alive? And there's no question that's a challenge, but I now had that background of knowing how it felt. And so my next step was realizing that this was something that my coaching clients also felt, that I was constantly hearing people say, I don't know what to do next. I know what to do next, but I don't know how to do what's next. I know what I want to do next, but I'm afraid to do what's next, or I'm stuck, I'm overwhelmed. I just can't even move forward. And then the biggest one, I think, of all things is I don't have time. I'd love to do this, but I really don't have time to move forward and follow my dreams and do all that. I'll get to that later. I'll get to that tomorrow. And so what I realized is that bravery and the adventure feels great, and the desire for outcome is encouraging, but there's a practical side to being brave. And so that's what I also wanted to share with you today, because there are a few things that really make bravery work. And of course, the first thing is listening, and listening to your brave self, and making that the voice that guides you. And I often say, when bravery is your GPS, then every day is an adventure in being you. And I think we all know that, meditation, journaling, just being quiet and taking time for yourself is a great way to tune in to what that voice is. But there's another piece, and this is sometimes the piece that doesn't happen, because tuning into yourself can feel really great, and it's a lovely thing to do, and it's very empowering. But if you don't take action, then it just stays as something you've listened to. You haven't really been brave enough to respond. And I think the action piece is the piece where you really have to take the risk. You really have to trust yourself. You really have to be resilient, and you have to move forward. You have to take action, so that when you have, let's say, a doubt, that the doubt can make you think, well, I just don't know. I can't make up my mind. I don't really know what I want to do. Well, all you have to do is do something. You have to do something to test to see what something is like. And until you test it, you just don't know. So I know, let's say for me, for years I wanted to write a book, and then I thought, I haven't even written a sentence. Like, maybe I should write a sentence before I decide whether I want to or I don't want to write a book. And or if you want to travel, well, I don't know, maybe I want to go take a trip to see if that kind of travel is right for me. And so to me, taking that action involves a couple of things to make that action easier. And it's really about knowing who you are, but not just how on the regular basis where we all might talk about who we are. It's actually spending some time to take practical action. And one of the first steps that is often talked about, but I think is really necessary, is looking what matters most to you. And so looking at your values, looking what you really care about for you is critical. And if you contact me through that email, I have a list of over 50 values that you can take a look at. And, sometimes it's been a long time since you've thought about what really matters to you. And so you might have liked things being, really active at one time, and now you don't want things to be active. You like things to be slower and calmer, or you might like to be in very active environments, but somebody else wants to be in a more secure kind of environment. And so everybody's values are different, but it's easy to lose track of what really what matters to me right now. And I like to think of it as also, in a fun way, because I always think it's nice to make things fun, is that looking at your values is like finding your personal style, what really works for you. And when you take action, it's really essential that the action you take matches that style, those values, because that's what makes action meaningful. Just to take action is, it's just taking action. But when you take action that's aligned with those parts of you and what you really care about, no matter what step you take, you are doing something that matters to you. And the more you build on that, that makes a huge difference. And then the next step is looking at your beliefs. And a lot of your beliefs are, what's up here in this conversation that is directing me so much on that trip. And looking at those beliefs to say, what am I really afraid of? And writing down the things you're afraid of, picking something that you want to do next and asking yourself, what scares me about that? And then looking at those fears, because what I also discovered on my trip is that all those things that I was afraid of, I was making them up. They actually weren't even anything to be afraid of. And all the things that in the past I might have said no to because I was afraid, on that trip, there is almost nothing that I would have missed, which made me realize that my fears had made me miss out on a lot in my life. So I think it's really important to take a look at your fears whenever they show up. Take a look at your doubts, take a look at anything that stops you and really ask yourself, is that true? And then it's also important to look at your strengths and your power and what really makes you, what really works for you as well. And so I just think taking an assessment of that is just critical. And then, of course, there is the piece of actually implementing the action. And one of the best answers to I don't have time is thinking about time. Because if you think about time, and you think if you took 1 hour every single day for a year, you would have 365 hours to start moving toward the future and being what you want. Because what's next really starts with now. So what you could do now with 1 hour a day, half hour a day, 2 hours a day, you can add it up and see how much time you can make for yourself. And you can make that time you think about watching TV, looking at your emails, looking at social media, talking on the phone, shopping, all the things that you might do, or all the distractions you might have, that you could carve out that one piece of time. And then the next step of doing that is to put it on your calendar, make an appointment with yourself, which creates accountability. And if you follow what you are putting on your calendar and you put that step that you want to take, every day that you do that, you are building your bravery, you're building your resilience, you're building your trust in yourself. And it really feels good to do that. And then on top of it, fear, which is always concerned about your safety and always wants things to be comfortable, becomes more comfortable. You are helping fear by saying, hey, look, I'm feeling really good. Look, I'm accomplishing things. This is a wonderful thing. And fear just loves that calendar. And so you've softened fear. You've softened that voice. It's not going to go away, but you've made that voice more supportive. And in addition, from all these things that you've done, is it also has great health benefits because you then feel more relaxed. You feel on purpose with what you're doing, but you feel calmer because you're actually doing what you said you want to do. And that question of why don't I do what I say I want to do is bothersome to a lot of people. But when you're doing what you say you want to do, it helps you relax. It helps you, which helps your blood pressure, which helps your cardio system, which helps your immune system. And when you feel confident and when you stop to feel grateful what's happening, it builds science says it builds your self-esteem, it builds life satisfaction. So all these things are geared to making your future feel good. And so, I always feel like if you can't really control that future, you can't really control the outcome. But if every day, day after day, you're feeling good, and if every day bravery is your GPS and you are experiencing who you want to be, no matter what, you discover that nothing feels better than bravery. And so if day after day you are feeling good, when you're looking at what's next, what's next has to be good. You have made the impact on what's next. You've turned that you can't know the outcome around because you feel good, which is what we all really want to feel. And so that's my premise for what's next. And it's what I follow. And there's no perfection in it because I often wake up stressed and I often worry about things just like I always did. But I also have that voice of bravery that I can really count on. And one last thing that I love to do is when I wake up in the morning, there's I've been reading that the first 30 minutes of your day really can affect how the rest of your day is. So I have a fun thing that I like to do is I feel like I like to have a conference call with the future and bravery. And maybe at the end, I'll call in fear to let them know what we're doing so that, fear can feel comfortable. But it really sets up my day for what's going to be happening and in this now moment and how I want to be and how I want bravery to be my guidance for how I handle things, because there's going to be good, there's going to be not so good. It's going to be the whole thing. And that if I want my life to be an adventure, my adventure also does include fear. It's the whole experience. And so tomorrow morning, you might want to try having a conversation with the universe and bravery and ask fear to come on into. And I think you may discover that you have a very different day that feels good, which is exactly, to me, the outcome that we really all want to be moving forward and to feel good about what we're doing.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Sandy. I'd like everyone to unmute and let's applaud for Sandy so she can hear. Woo-hoo! Wow, that was so good. Thank you so much. Oh, and I want to thank anyone who's watching this live or watching the replay. If you'd like to join us for one of our Zoom gatherings or an in-person in Columbia, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, or Tallahassee, Florida, just comment below and I'll tell you how to do that. Or you can go to my website, opwgc.com, and find out all about our community. Thanks for watching, everyone.